Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Christopher Media, let's make some noise. Welcome to Beer Nuts, a weekly excursion into the world of craft beer, brought to you by MichiganBeerGuide.com. And now, here are the Beer Nuts.
Welcome to Beer Nuts, number 139. I'm Chris, and I am in West Plains, Missouri today, and my last Untapped check-in was Jam Band Ale from Boulevard Brewing, Kansas City.
All right, I guess we're headed to Steve V out in L.A. next.
Hello from the West Coast, Steve V. My last Untapped check-in was Trader Joe's Quinquagenary 2017, a vintage ale made by Unibrow. It was a Belgian strong dark ale.
All right, and moving west to east, JR here, Sierra Vista, Arizona. Our last Untapped check-in was Spawn of Earp, a double IPA from Tombstone Brewing Company here in Tombstone, Arizona. It's delicious. Heading to Greg next.
Yeah, all right. Greg here, Dearborn, Michigan. And my last Untapped check-in was from Four Hands Brewing Company out of St. Louis, Missouri. It was their Warhammer Imperial IPA 2019 edition. Super delicious.
Next to Clawson.
Yeah, this is Dugout in Clawson, Michigan. My last Untapped check-in was Juicy Contradiction from Oddside Ales, a really nice brute IPA. Really nice.
All right, and last but certainly not least, glad to have Ross in Durham, North Carolina with us. Welcome back, Ross.
Hey, my last check-in was a cocoa-dipped espresso imperial stout from Highwire. That was yesterday, so
okay,
it was pretty good.
All right, well, tonight we have pretty much a random selection. We call this episode Mixed Nuts. We haven't done a Mixed Nuts episode in a long time. We've been
December
a little bit
2016.
better about scheduling out topics, but we just thought, hey, let's take a break from being forced to try a certain style or a certain brewery, and let's just give everybody free reign to drink whatever the heck they want. So, as always, we want to invite everybody to crack open a cold one. And we're not pretentious beer snobs. We just want to introduce more good people to more good beer. So whatever you're drinking is fine with us. And it's just free reign tonight, so it should be fun for everyone to drink whatever the heck they want. So we're going to go west to east tonight. So we're going to have Steve V lead things off. Does anybody have a quote of the week? We didn't really talk about that. I think I had something here.
Yeah, you put something up.
Going here. Let's see. Where was that thing?
I think you posted to the production team.
Okay, well, here's my quote. I posted this late today. It's short and sweet. And tonight's quote of the week: every day brings a new opportunity to live a better life. You've already missed it for today, so you might as well drink. Perfect for this episode.
There you
go. So with that being said, let's turn it over to Steve V out in Los Angeles, California.
So today I went strolling down my local beer spot, Ramirez Liquor. A little shout out to them. And saw what was going to fancy my eye, and I came across this great looking can. It's a pumpkin skull head from Los Angeles Ale Works. It's the Calabaza Cowboy, a pumpkin spice lager. It's 5%. It's their description is: toss aside your PLs, or the pumpkin-headed cowboy will creep up on you. A spooky variation of our dead cowboy. This cerveza is loaded with scorched pumpkin flesh and laced with cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and allspice to haunt your holidays. So since Halloween is my favorite holiday, then this was up my alley, and it sounded delicious, so I opened up a can right now. Smelling it, you can just smell Halloween. Just smells like just spices right away. It's like a little amber color, dark, on the dark side. Kind of clear. Yes, very spicy, very ginger, almost like a gingerbread. Really light, nice and smooth. Very good. I hope this comes back around the holidays, because I like to see it back on the shelf again. It's a great little fall beer. Like I said, just kind of like a very good little lager, but with the added spice to it. Would have liked to taste a little more of that pumpkin, but all around it's a very good beer. I quite enjoy it.
All right, good beer to lead it off with. Nice looking can there.
Yeah, you can see how it caught my eye.
Well, I'm not much of a pumpkin fan, but that's why we do mixed nuts on occasion, so we get a little bit of everything. So I am going to go next, moving west to east over to southern Arizona. And I'm going to shock the world because it's pretty rare that I select a sour, especially when I can pick anything. But I got a very interesting sour beer from a friend, Jen from Oklahoma. Thank you, Jen. Recently sent me a box of beers, and in there was this 405 Brewing Company, barrel-aged GFS. I believe the GFS stands for Grapefruit Sour. It's a blended sour beer brewed with freshly squeezed grapefruits aged in bourbon barrels. The brewery, 405 Brewing, is based in Norman, Oklahoma, so from the heartland. So I said, what the heck? It's mixed nuts. Let's do something different. So I poured this. Actually looks, if I wouldn't know any better, it looks like nice deep orange color. Looks almost like a double IPA. Nice deep orange amber color, and a really frothy white head that is sticking around. I poured this probably 10, 15 minutes ago before we started recording, just to make sure that it was something I would enjoy enough to want to drink to the show, and I took a sip and was pleasantly surprised, and it's holding the carbonation levels holding up well. Of course, it's a sour, so maybe a little funk in here, but so let's just take a sip here. Nice orange color, frothy head. So on the aroma, you can definitely smell some bourbon spirit. You can tell that there's some bourbon, but almost get a little bit of that like sour mix, and but it smells almost like a cocktail, like a whiskey sour. So the bourbon barrel had a lot of influence in this. It's not subtle barrel. It's a lot of bourbon in here, which is probably why I enjoy it. So, and again, when I sip it, I expected more of a bitter grapefruit, but a lot of sweetness, I think, from the bourbon counters nicely the sour grapefruit. And amazing how dark this is. I know when you put it up to the light, it's orange, but it's almost a brown other than that. So you would think a grapefruit beer would be yellow, but I really have to believe that the barrel had a lot of influence in this beer because it's significant amount of bourbon flavor, which, again, it reminds me of a whiskey sour cocktail almost. And it even has that nice frothy, green, white head on the top that really it's sticking to the glass real nice and lacing. Very solid on the glass. So I'll show you guys on the camera in a little bit. But yeah, it's you get a lot of. I've had a lot of bourbon barrel-aged beers through the years that you can barely tell there's any spirit influence, and maybe this is probably likely a smaller brewery. I did try to do research, and the brewery's website does not come up at all. I'm not certain why. I did get their Facebook to come up, but there's really no references to this particular beer. So I'm pretty much on my own. I looked up Rate Beer. I looked up Beer Advocate, and there's no reviews for this beer. So I have a feeling this is probably a small local brewery in Norman. I believe the University of Oklahoma is in Norman. So I don't know much about this brewery or the size of it. I am going to read from the bottle, just to give you a little bit more idea of what this beer is about. It says, Liquid Art. Our love for sours started with GFS, a sour beer brewed with hot, freshly squeezed grapefruits. From batch 1 through batch X, GFS evolved and took on a personality all of its own. We aged 4 batches in bourbon barrels and have now brought them back together for their farewell tour. So it appears they took blended 4 different batches to get this. But it's actually a wonderful beer, and for somebody that admittedly is not always fond of all sours, albeit I always give it the old college try. which helps. And this one's a winner. I'm actually really enjoying this, and this is I think it's a 500 milliliter bottle. It's pretty big. 16.9 ounces. So I'm going to enjoy this whole bottle. It's a really nice beer for this time of year. It's a little hot here, but yet, the only thing I don't know is I have no idea the ABV, and it doesn't have it on there, but I would imagine it's probably not that high on the base beer, maybe a little bit extra point or two for the bourbon, but yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and again, reminds me kind of a whiskey sour. So great beer here. Thank you to Jen for sending me this. I doubt anybody else has heard of this brewery or ever had this beer, so probably no opportunity for anybody to chime in, but I'm enjoying it. All right, so speaking of Oklahoma, we're going to go to the heartland over, I believe, Chris is on location in Missouri.
Yeah,
so take it away, Chris.
I got my canoe ready too, man. It's been raining for like a month out here, but and I've been lucky. There's been flooding everywhere. I haven't run into it. But anyway, I am in West Plains, Missouri, and I went local for this episode from Springfield Brewing Company. I have Green Dragon. It is a double IPA. It is a limited release. That's another reason why I grabbed this. There was only I mean, quite honestly, we've talked about this before. The best word of mouth on a beer. Well, I don't know if it's word of mouth, but is empty shelf space, right? There was like one or two of these left among everything else, so I grabbed this. So it's a limited edition. Weren't many left on the shelf. One of the main reasons I grabbed this, 7.5 ABV. Bottle says big, juicy tropical melon notes from a double helping of Citra and Idaho 7 hops. Now, I poured this thing, truth be told, about 10 minutes before we started, and this thing's got a head on it that just won't quit. Now, it's not the infected head that we're all familiar with. This is just got a heavy, creamy head that has just been, it's dissipated about as much as it could. But typical IPA style, this thing is it's somewhere between amber and gold, dark yellow, and you stick your nose in it. I mean, you're smelling grapefruit, getting the hops, a lot, the floral aroma, and that's really all I'm getting on the nose. The bottle says melon, but not getting any. Let's take another sip. And this thing's got a nice, heavy, creamy mouthfeel for an IPA. It's quite good. And truth be told, I used to go out to the West Coast for a while. I'm used to double IPA. I'm used to being punched in the mouth with hops. This is a lot more tempered than a double IPA generally is. It's a lot more drinkable as well. I mean, which 7.5% could be dangerous. But if you find yourself in the middle of the country, you see Green Dragon Double IPA from Springfield Brewing, pick it up. Definitely good. I'm glad I have 5 more of these because I still got a couple more days here in the heartland.
Well, it sounds like these beers are probably going to be hard for most of our listeners to find, which is kind of cool to get some off the beaten path beers. So if everybody could please post your picture to our Facebook page, I'll be sure and take them and put them on Instagram. Unless you're savvy enough to put your own on Instagram under the Beer Nuts podcast. But I think it'd be cool to share the pictures of the beers. All right. Well, I think before we head to Greg and Dearborn, we have a little bit of craft beer news for our hipster tipster segment of the podcast. First thing we have is there was a big lawsuit filed. Miller Coors was successful in challenging. They got an injunction for AB InBev to stop airing the corn syrup ads, which is kind of funny. The two big industry giants fighting it out with each other. I've talked to some brewery people that think that it's absurd that they would make that. Corn syrup is just an adjunct ingredient that's commonly used in brewing for bigger, mass-produced beers. But nevertheless, I guess the lawyers, the courts have sided with Miller Coors in for now, AB InBev has to pull those ads. I don't know if there's going to be any monetary damages. We did have an article. Perhaps we'll post that on our Twitter. There was an article, I think, in the Chicago Tribune about it. Another thing in the news that some of the other beer nuts may want to comment on is Constellation Brands, which is Corona, Modelo, and also Ballast Point. I think they also have, what's the brewery out of Georgia? Terrapin. I think that's part of the Constellation umbrella. And there may be others that I'm forgetting about, but they were fined $420,000 for illegal business practices, basically buying tap handles and funneling money to retailers to put beers on tap. This is a practice that goes on with the big players that have big pockets. I think I know a distributor up in Massachusetts got in a lot of trouble for paying for Yangling handles a ways back. Heineken USA had a huge fine for the same thing. So, I think these types of things happen all day long. It's just a question of how good they can hide practices. But in a way, it's good that some of them are being outed, and maybe will level the playing field a little bit more fair for the smaller brewers that can never afford to do these types of violations. So, it is illegal to pay a retailer for, slotting your product in. But
for me, it checks off the gray area that I used to slide by and use to let myself have some of the Ballast Point Victory at Sea one-offs. But when they get caught like this, it makes me just say, I'm going to avoid them from now on.
Yep, and we all have choices to make, and we all have our beer budgets. And not to say that those big companies that have purchased some good craft breweries can't still crank out quality product, but doesn't mean we have to patronize them. Everybody has their own choice there, and when you see stuff like this in the news, it does make you kind of go, we've always been supporters of the smaller independent craft brewers, and we will continue to do so. Remember, we did the segment on the independent craft brewing icon that's now on many brands. So, I always feel a little bit better when I'm buying a 4-pack of beer and I look on there and I see that independent craft brewing symbol. So we'll continue to support those breweries, and it's unfortunate that the big boys resort to this. So open it up for other comments.
And they take it to the retailers as well, because if they weren't taking it, it wouldn't be going on. So obviously they're like, free money, great, but for example, they put up a new yard house right in the neighborhood here, and I walk in there, there's 90 something taps, and that 60 plus are bought. They wouldn't. It's just so much repetition of mass-produced beers in that place that I said, no, this is not what I like, Give me some more options.
Yeah, you know what? Same thing here. I went to the local Buffalo Wild Wings, and there's 3 local taps, and the rest are all big company stuff. And somewhere there's a national account chain guy taking the Buffalo Wild Wings buyer to the Super Bowl or to Vegas for a NASCAR race or whatever it may be, and that's how they get around these. They may not be handing them, cash or money, but they're wining and dining and paying for trips. There's all kinds of ways that these big companies can get away with, spending the big bucks that the little guys don't have, and at the end we all suffer, because I go to Buffalo Wild Wings and I gotta, I actually ordered. The last time I went to Buffalo Wild Wings, I ordered 3 local ones, and the first 2 were out. So that tells you, that's what customers want if they're out of it. But either they're running out, or they're just inept at ordering properly, or maybe they don't want those beers. Maybe they're trying to push the big, corporate beers. But hey, it happens all day long, and all we can do is hope that, unfortunately, the only way most of these companies get caught is when they are reported. And as Dugout says, the people receiving the checks probably aren't going to report it, because they're, they'll take the bribe or kickback or whatever you want to call it. But, eventually it catches up with them. A disgruntled employee outs them, or, somebody that cares about integrity outs them. And, there's no place for that business practice. So we'll continue to support. Everybody has their own choice. So keep that in mind when next time you make your beer purchases.
As a minor note, Terrapin is Miller Coors.
Yep, absolutely. You're right. I knew they were one of the bigger ones, but I don't know of any Miller Coors finds, but doesn't mean it's not happening. But all right. Anybody else have anything?
I guess I hear this and I'm not surprised because I had a brief radio career about 20 years ago, and at least 20 years ago, in radios, the same kind of stuff went on. A band, a guy from a label would come in to get a band you never heard of on the radio, and payola's outlawed, but they take they take the program director and the music director out to lunch, and all of a sudden, guess who's playing that band? The radio. So it doesn't seem fair. It's I get it, free market and all that, but with things like this, it seems like they're gaming the system.
Well, the last thing I would ever want to do is bring up a political discussion, but it comes down to it's just like lobbyists. Money talks, and you can always find a way to. You can always find a way. If you have money, you have power. Little guys are at a disadvantage, but fortunately, most of the craft beer consumers see right through it, and will continue to patronize small independent craft brewers. Amen to that. All right. Anybody else have anything to add on Hipster Tipster?
So we've been following the saga of North Carolina's barrel limits. It made it to the governor's desk, and now we're just waiting for him to sign it. So it's a sure thing. It's just whenever he gets around to having his photo op for signing it, they'll get it done.
And in case there's listeners that didn't hear the last time we talked about this, can you just briefly describe what that bill means for smaller brewers?
It raises the self-distribution cap in North Carolina from 25,000 to 50,000 barrels, so they're not required to sign with a distributor until they hit 50,000 now. As soon as the governor actually signs it. So that, in terms of not having to get into the pay-to-play thing a little earlier than you have to, depending on what the things we just talked about, they can self-distribute all they want up until 50,000 barrels. And once they hit that production, then they have to sign with the distributor.
Yep. And that's another case where it's a good victory for the smaller brewers, but I'm sure that the larger brewers and distributors fought that to an extent.
Yeah, the original bill was more like 200,000, or they really wanted to put it out there so that no small brewery would ever have to worry about it, and things got negotiated down to 50,000. Well,
Smaller victory than should have been, but we'll take every little victory we can get in the battle against the evil empire.
ChristopherMedia.net.
Discovery Plus is the greatest collection of real-life entertainment on the planet. 55,000 episodes from networks like TLC, HGTV, and tons more. Woohoo! Discovery Plus. Stream now. Stream what you love.
ChristopherMedia.net.
All right. I think, Greg, you're up. Let's go to Dearborn.
All right, man. I am thirsty. After hearing you guys talk, I am ready for this beer. So, mine is a local Michigan beer here from Old Nation Brewing Company. I think we've talked about them a few times, once or twice at least on this podcast. This is their, I believe, their second release in their Woodshed Pilot series called Dry Honey Saison Ale. 7.1%, 20 IBUs, comes in a 16-ounce can. For you guys here who can see it, black and yellow can here with nice little, cabin down there, and then it's hard to see, but there is like a little woodsman down in the corner there, kind of reflecting, it looks like. But yeah, so this is the second time I've had this. First time was, I think, about a year ago at the pub. Let me get a smell here. It's you get a lot of that banana. a lot of banana esters, clove. You get that maybe like a bubble gum, honey sweetness. Very clean. She poured like a golden, more like an orange, I should say, but there's a little yellow hint to it. Really a beautiful beer. It can see right through it, so it's not a hazy by any means. But so, cheers, guys. Let's get a taste of it here. Right off bat, a very nice sweetness to it. You get more of that those yeast, the French saison characteristics of the clove, white banana, bubble gum. A crackery bread dough type deal. I mean, this is it's got a little dryness to the back end, but I mean, this is super refreshing. This is perfect summertime beer, which we're still waiting for here in Michigan, although it's teased us a little bit here and there within the last few weeks. But yeah, this is a great can. It's like $3.50 I picked up at one of the local stores around here, and definitely am enjoying this and would go back and pick up more of it. So I don't know if you guys have had any, JR or Dugout. You guys are around here at all, so.
Well, that's definitely on the list for me. I love a good saison. I got one carbonating right now in the beer fridge, and I love everything that they do pretty much. So I'll definitely keep an eye out for them.
Mm-hmm.
I have not had a chance to try that one, and Uncle Pete sent me a big old nation. I got the last round of Woodshed, the Brute, but
the Brute IPA, yeah.
I've never seen this at the tap room, so this is one I've never had, but it sounds pretty good.
Definitely a warm weather beer. I guess you could try it, drink it any time, but this would definitely, be nice in the backyard and after lawn mowing or even sitting at a beach somewhere. But definitely recommend anybody in the state of Michigan that wants to go check it out, do so. You would not be disappointed, at least according to my opinion. So take it for what it's worth.
Sounds like a good one. All right. Last but not least, the grand finale. We're going to Durham. Russ, you have the floor.
No Dugout?
Yep.
Oh,
going.
Never mind. Dugout. Okay. We'll go to Clausen before we go to Durham.
Okay, so the beer I have is from a Michigan brewery. It's called Arcadia Brewing Company. They used to be in Battle Creek, but are now located in Kalamazoo. This is called The Devil Went Down to Gary, American India Pale Ale. The reference is obviously to Gary, Indiana. And once I read the description of the website, it'll make a little more sense. The Devil Went Down to Gary. Sometimes inspiration can come from the strangest of places. This is exemplified in Arcadia's first American Pale Ale, The Devil Went Down to Gary. If you ask the brewer who conceived of this delicious tropical beer, he would tell you it came to him in a dream after falling blissfully asleep under a palm tree on a stretch of beach on Lake Gary in Gary, Indiana. Okay. Well, that's kind of weird, but okay. I know there's some good beaches in Gary, Indiana, though, on Lake Michigan. While an intriguing description, it does not begin to exemplify this delicious, hoppy, yet fruity American Pale Ale. Brewed in our 100-barrel closed fermenters with American ale yeast, diversions from our 21-year-old proprietary yeast strain. Dry hopped with Mosaic and Citra, tropical and hoppy flavors and aromas are balanced by a solid malt backbone. Like copper and collar with a creamy white head, you'll never guess that 7.7%. It's so easy to enjoy a pint or two. So I do have to agree, this is delicious. It's juicy. It's not bitter. It's probably the best Arcadia beer I've ever had, and I've tried quite a few. It's pretty much, it's more gold than copper to me, but just a little copper tinge. The head retention on it is outstanding. It's just, I poured it when the show started, and it's still standing up. So that's excellent. It's got a nice looking can. I Saw it yesterday and I balked on it. And then I went back to the store and it just kept calling my name. So I picked up a 6. For those of you familiar with Arcadia, they've been around for a long time, some 20 years. Started out in Battle Creek, and then a few years back, they closed the Battle Creek location and moved into Kalamazoo. They're just within blocks from Bell's Eccentric, so their brew pub and their homebrew store.
When I lived there, they were downtown. Not sure if they're still there, but if they're still blocks from Bell's, and they got to be downtown.
Yeah, that's still where they're at. I'm not sure if we've reviewed some of their stuff. Like maybe we might have reviewed like a barrel aged shipwreck porter or a barrel aged imperial stout or the serial killer. We might have done that before, but I don't think so. I just think that they've not had the best of treatment from their distributors in that they're put into a lot of places and then they're left on the warm shelf and their beers suffer horribly. And then you don't know how old the stuff is that you're getting. I've had some of their Hop Mouth and also their Hop Rocket that just went so bad so fast. So I've just kind of shied away from them. Being it was in cans and I knew it just came out, I'd give them a shot. So hopefully this becomes a mainstay for them and this is the direction they're heading. I'm going to be buying some more of this. As long as I can get it, I'll be buying it.
Fun fact about Arcadia Brewing, the first IPA I ever had was made by Arcadia. That was the IPA that made me go, oh my God, people drink this on purpose? No. Flash forward 20 years, and I'm drinking a double IPA.
I think I read something in the news, not to be a downer, but they were having some financial difficulties in restructuring the company. And I think they actually, the Kalamazoo building, they sold to the bank for $1. I think they needed to, I'm not really sure what's going on, but there's something I'd have to look it up on. I'll Google it.
I would do your due diligence and find out the truth. I've heard a lot of different things, and I saw a statement from the company that said none of this is true. Who makes this stuff up? We don't know, but we wish they would stop. And that they were fine financially. So I know we had chatted about that a little bit before a show on one of the hipster tipsters, and that's what I said. I had read the statement from the company and thought, why propagate somebody else's lies then if what they're saying is a lie? So,
okay, well, further research is necessary. I just found an article from May 3rd. Bank announced proposing new operator of Arcadia, but it appears that they're maybe having some restructuring, but they're not going away. And I really have enjoyed their shipwreck porter, the barrel aged porter. Their serial killer barley wine was another one that I've enjoyed. So they've had some good beers. That their imperial stout's pretty good. I believe that their most of their brewing wheelhouse, is Irish and British beers. If I'm not mistaken, is that true, Doug?
Yeah, well, I think they do a lot of tend to those styles. I mean, they do a Pils and they do a couple different IPAs, a double IPA. Obviously the pumpkin beer, but then they've got a London Porter and I think I saw a Scotch style ale. Yep, Lockdown Scotch ale. Everything else seems to kind of be all over the place, though. Other than that,
yep. Well, they have been around a long time, and certainly we hope that they are having any kind of difficulties that they weather the storm and come out bigger and stronger. So, but that sounds like a great beer you're having there, and as long as they're making good beer, then all is well. All right, now I do believe it's finally time to head to Durham, to Ross.
Okay, so I'm doing Burial's Griddle Imperial Espresso Stout. People may be more familiar with their Donut Skillet Stout. I think that gets they make a lot more of that. This one only comes out like maybe twice a year, whereas the Scout, the the skillet comes out several times a year. I poured. So one of the reasons I wasn't ready earlier was the fact that this their recommended drinking temperature is 50 degrees. So I wanted to let it warm up a little bit, and let other people go first. So I poured it a little while ago. It had a head that went away very quickly, and it might have been like a finger total, and then it was gone. So it's kind of disappointing, but the smell itself is just straight up coffee. So they're not lying when they just said it's an imperial espresso. On the back end, you can get a little bit of sweetness. It's got like a nice roasty smell to it, but it's really, the coffee is overwhelming. So taste wise, yeah. So it's coffee up front. You get more roasty taste to it. There's a little dark chocolate, and it's a little bitter. It's really good. It's what I would expect again from a nice coffee stout, which is what it is essentially. A little medium carbonation, I guess. It was a little more carbonated a little while ago, but it settled down. And yeah, it's just nice dark roasted coffee. It's definitely not as sweet as the skillet. They're different beers. I shouldn't be really comparing them, I guess. When this first came out, we kind of thought it might have been a variant on the skillet, but it's actually a different beer entirely. It's a different process. It's different on the ABV. Everything's different about it. But it's very easy to drink. It's got a nice balance of the bitterness with a little bit of the sweetness. They've got a little lactose in there. But all in all, it's just a very good, solid coffee beer. It's a little change up for them. The other, like I said, skillet is a little bit sweeter, and some of their other smaller batch stuff tends to be sweeter, but this isn't. Just enjoying it. As a side note, Burial opened a tap room in Raleigh, and it's also they've been doing some small batch distribution there. They've basically been splitting their small batches between Asheville and Raleigh in even amounts. So like last week there was a special release, something they only made 200 bottles of, and they put 100 bottles in Asheville and 100 bottles in Raleigh. And I was lucky enough to get in line and have it sell out 10 people in front of me, but a friend of mine was 12 people in front of me, so she let me have one of her bottles. And that'll be opened on a special occasion later. It was a nice, another small batch stout they'd made. But all in all, this is a very drinkable, very, put it right there with Skillet and some of the one-offs of Skillet that they do, the special versions of it. And now speaking, I guess more Burial news real quick while we're on Burial. This week, they do their, every year in May, June timeframe, they have Donut Day, which is at Burial in Asheville. And they do donut pairings with one-offs of the Skillet beer. I was lucky enough to get there on to go out to Asheville on Father's Day a couple of years ago, and they still had 3 of the variants from Skillet, from the Skillet Donut Day on, which I got to try a blueberry variant and a couple others. And those were amazing beers, but they don't bottle any of those, so you have them in Asheville, and they didn't make it to. I don't think they're making it to Raleigh. But that's a hard thing to get to from here because it's usually a Thursday, which implies at least one day off of work to go do it. So anyway, it's a fun little thing they do this time of year. Just as a side note. Anyway, back to the beer. It's like I said, a nice solid. The coffee is very upfront, both smell and taste. and it's right down my alley. That's what I like. So I'll call that.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the great time I had joining Ross at Burial for the Burn Pile Harvest Festival a few years ago. One of the best times I've ever had. Great beer festival, great beer town. Thoroughly enjoyed, and then of course we got to watch our Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Carolina Panthers, which made the trip even more enjoyable. But
and just as a plug for Asheville's a really great place because all the breweries that are there are basically within walking distance of each other, as John got to discover along with me. It's really no more than a 5-minute walk from any brewery to the next brewery. Whether you've got Highwire and Green Man and Burial and Wicked Weed and Twin Leaf and I don't know. There's several more uptown as well. But everything's just a nice short walk to go to brewery down there, and it makes it's a great destination if you're a beer person.
Hey, we managed to go to Oscar Blues too.
Yeah, that one's a bit farther away. They're about half.
Still hit it on the trip.
Yeah,
it was a great. Anybody has a chance to go to Asheville, go. And like Ross said, we hit probably 6-8 breweries, within walking distance in the downtown. But we got to, outskirts of town to go to the Oscar Blues. And a funny story, we had
Sierra Nevada's there too. Yeah.
Sierra Nevada, yep. And a funny story, we were walking down the street and I saw Wicked Weed, and it was right after the AB buyout, like a month or two. Like it was right after that. And I wanted to go in, but I didn't want to support the evil empire, so we did not enter. But the funny story is we went to a local bottle shop. That might have actually been in Durham. Was it down there, or Ross? There was actually a bottle shop that had Wicked Weed on closeout on the end caps, and had every bottle of Wicked Weed had like the Anheuser-Busch Eagle on it, and half price fire sale.
that was Beer Study in Durham. Yeah, that's my friend JD runs that store, and yeah, he immediately got rid of all his Wicked Weed paraphernalia. Like he had cast iron signs and stuff, and he cut out all the little AB InBev labels and taped them onto all his remaining bottles of Wicked Weed. So
that was just a fun memory from that trip, seeing that like there locally, even right in North Carolina, where Wicked Weed was revered for so many years, overnight they became dead. It was like you're dead to me to a lot of the retailers and a lot of the patrons. So that was a great trip, though. So, sure was, man. So speaking of North Carolina, we have a spoiler for you. Next week's episode, Russ will be hosting, and we will be, all of us, Russ was kind enough to distribute a supply of Foothills Brewing beers to all of us, and some of them are, I think, en route, being shipped to you as we speak. But by next week at this time, we should be all drinking Foothills. So thank you for that, Ross, and very much looking forward. I know one of their mainstays is sexual chocolate and several variants, coffee infused, barrel aged. So really looking forward to that one. North Carolina's got a great beer scene, and we're fortunate to have Russ able to help us procure some of those great beers. So really looking forward to that, and we hope you'll tune in and listen to next week's episode. That'll be a good one.
Thanks, Ross.
Yeah, thanks, Ross.
Thank you, Ross.
Yeah, thanks, Ross.
Thank you, Bunt. Oh, no.
All right. Anybody have any closing comments?
Great episode.
We had a nice cross section of different styles and a few off the beaten path breweries. So it was a good show. And next week we'll all be drinking North Carolina brews, thanks to Ross. So until then, let's head to Mexico. So as they say in old Mexico City, AMF.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for listening, and thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.